How churches are trying to keep their congregations safe as threats of ICE raids loom. Bill Mahers Report, the last time the Reverend Emma Lozano's church moved services online, a pandemic was sweeping through the congregation. This time, the Chicago pastor says a different threat is putting her community at risk, with no end in sight. Then, what we were waiting for was the vaccine, the vacuna. We called it La Medicina, Lozano says. Now we're all wondering, what is the medicine? What is the vaccine for this? How long is it going to take? Moving Spanish services back online, she says, was a painful decision Lincoln United Methodist Church's leadership reached shortly before President Donald Trump returned to power. We knew we would be a target, so why would we just be like sitting ducks and waiting for them? She says, we've got to do what we've got to do, and we are obligated to take care of each other. With threats of mass deportation looming, the church's decision in early January was a telling example of a growing fear in immigrant communities. Spaces previously seen as safe might not be any longer. Indeed, days later, officials rescinded a policy that previously limited ICE agents from conducting arrests in churches. Criminals will no longer be able to hide in America's schools and churches to avoid arrests, that acting Homeland Security Secretary Benjamin Huffman said in a statement at the time. The Trump administration will not tie the hands of our brave law enforcement, and instead trust them to use common sense. A coalition of Christian and Jewish organizations filed a lawsuit last week asking a federal judge to block the policy change, arguing it infringes on their religious freedom and violates the Constitution. Officials have responded to that lawsuit, but in a similar suit filed by a coalition of Quaker groups, the Justice Department argued in a court filing that a judge shouldn't block the policy change based on hypothetical future harms. So far as legal challenges continue, the new policy remains in place, leaving some church leaders scrambling to help their congregations feel safe. There haven't been any reports of ICE raids inside houses of worship since the administration announced its new policy. But a recent arrest outside a church in suburban Atlanta was cited in last week's lawsuit as a foreboding example of what many congregations fear. At some churches, attendance has dropped off. Others have seen their faithful even more committed to showing up. In the battle to protect her community, Lozano doesn't see the recent shift to online services as a retreat. Quite the opposite. It's one of many ways Lozano says she and others are ready to fight. We look at it like a boxer, we're hanging in there, says Lozano, a longtime immigrant rights advocate. We're going to go all the rounds, all the way. This much is clear. Even with years of experience, Lozano and other religious leaders tell CNN the current climate is unlike anything they faced before.